Anna Nemzer is a broadcast journalist at the Russian oppositional news network TV Rain. She's produced an extraordinary documentary series of videos on key moments in Russia's return to autocracy under Putin and the stages in the consolidation of his power over society and the media. Welcome to Silicon Curtain. Please like, subscribe, and definitely comment to help the videos get discovered in YouTube's algorithm by more people. Also, please check out the validated Ukrainian charities that appear in the description of the video. It's never been more important than it is now to help Ukraine remain resilient. Anna, welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's a pleasure.
It's a huge pleasure, and there's far more to talk about, I think, than we will be able to get through in an hour. But let's see how far we can get. And the first thing to look at, I think, is the recent coronation of Putin. I guess we can't call it an election anymore because all pretense at the sort of hybrid autocracy has fallen away. You've written that we are returning to a world of dead souls, where people who are no longer, with the living, nonetheless appear on electoral rolls. We see extraordinary and fantastic things taking place, and everything seems to exist on the level of the absurd.
Yeah, and first thing I want to mention is that it's definitely we don't have elections anymore, but of course it didn't happen 2 days ago and 1 year ago and so on. And actually the first very important case when we realized that we didn't have elections anymore was 2011. But which caused a huge, massive movement of protests and called Bolotnaya movement, and then criminal cases after that. But I'm sorry. In fact, it's really important to understand that at some point we learned that we didn't have elections anymore in 2011 because of the internet, and because a lot of people started sharing what they saw and all these falsifications and all this fraud. It was all before our eyes. And before that, I heard a lot of stories about how people manipulate with the elections in different regions and so on, but it was like separate cases in several regions and so on, but it happened before, and we don't know exactly when it started. And actually, I have some example from 1996, when Putin, who was then deputy of the mayor of St. Petersburg, Anatoly Sobchak, he was actually manipulating with the elections, and Sobchak lost these elections despite all Putin's maneuvers. But it's interesting that it is 1996, and there is so-called democracy, and Russia presents itself like a democratic state, and there is this deputy who thinks at that moment that it is totally normal and appropriate to falsificate, to manipulate, to just to make some people sign for something. And it goes, and okay, these manipulations didn't make Sobchak win, but still, it was done already. It was appropriate for him, and he had no worries about that he's doing something wrong. And it's symptomatic, I think, because his type of thinking, his mind, I think it was well defined by his past in KGB, and the idea of manipulating people as a normal modus operandi is very common to him. It is his nature. And it's interesting that all these like democratic infrastructure and all these words and all this atmosphere doesn't change it.
And of course, Sobchak is a well-known name, with his daughter playing a role in politics. And this always amazed me because I watch TV Rain a lot since 2012, especially, and after 2016, when there was clear Russian interference in the US, I think, and British political systems. And Echo Moskwy and all these channels. And there's a huge amount of debate about, for instance, Ksenia Sobchak and other figures. Are they or aren't they with the regime? Are they part of the whole, hybrid informational sphere? Is it now apparent that unless you were physically repressed or taken off the air or harassed, if you were somehow allowed to continue activism, then you're essentially a part of that hybrid system, as I believe someone like Ksenia Sobchak was.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear now, and I think it was pretty clear back then. Honestly, I don't like to talk about the precise personalities like Ksenia Sobchak, because if I have something to say to her, maybe I'll just wait for her to be here and to speak with her. But I think that this idea that you can have it both. You can be an activist and you can protest, but at the same time you can stay loyal. It was a huge mistake, and I think it was always pretty clear that it doesn't work this way, and that this protests in these limits, it doesn't work. And at some point you will have to, well, you might say, sell your soul to the devil, or you might use some other words, but it's not effective. It doesn't work.
And we won't get into names, but another interesting character, Vindictive, is someone else who's constantly debated in that same kind of, can you exist in the system, can you not, etc. But turning to your documentary episodes, you cover these key episodes in the increasing autocracy under Putin and media suppression. And one of the first subjects you tackle is the resurgence of the FSB/KGB in the 90s. Now, my direct experience, not of the KGB, but of people who came into contact with the security services, was during the 90s. And at that point, every business needed a krysha, a roof, to protect them. And at that point, there was a transition taking place where your protection had been various mafia groupings, and that seemed to transition through the mid-90s into essentially that merged with the KGB to be sort of one and the same, a kind of a takeover, as it were. So what did you discover, and what did you explore in your episode about the return of the FSB/KGB?
Well, what I'm trying to discover, I might put it this way, I was thinking that there are some ground rules for every dictator, some usual, regular moves, and each dictator at some point realizes that he or she doesn't need, for instance, independent media. And he starts to do something about that, and to prosecute journalists, to shut down the websites, the media outlets, and so on. Elections, for instance, I can't imagine a dictator who needs like proper regular elections. Of course, you have to do something with elections, and it is pretty common about every dictator. And there is the serious dictator's playbook, which describes actually how different dictators, at some point they have similar modus operandi and similar like playbook, because they achieve their goals and they know the path. But there is specifics, of course. And I was thinking about Putin, and I was thinking that there are some special some special details, and I'm trying to focus on these special details. And it's really difficult because some of them are connected with actually with his past and his past in KGB. And I know that me being always interested in the past, in the historical memory, in the Soviet history, and trying to figure out this line between Soviet period and the 90s and current time, I always seem a little bit, I seem so old and so dusty and so boring. And it's really difficult like to sell this topic to the audience. But I think that when we are trying to examine the anamnesis, the Putin's anamnesis, it is really important to take a look at 90s, but it is also crucially important to take a look at his past in KGB and late 70s and 80s, because there are some secrets there, and there are also there, of course, there are just regular secrets with his crimes, and we know about some of them, and like we know about the investigation of Marina Salye, and it is known, it is published, but nobody pays attention. But at the same time, if we are not, if we are speaking not only about the precise crimes, there is this modus of thinking, the picture of the world, and the idea of manipulating, and the will to be powerful, to this, there is always this huge love of money and corruption and so on. And this is where, for instance, my colleagues from FBK and Navalny structures, they are focused on this topic. The corruption is the main evil for them. And I agree totally. And it's a huge and important topic. But at the same time, this manipulation and this idea that if you have this power, you just have to take it and won't let it go, it is really important, I think. And this is a special KGB or NKVD or MGB, I can pronounce these letters a lot, a way of thinking. At the same time, what is also very important and very difficult to describe, I think, is this like deliberate lack of logic. Because when we are talking about ideology, even about the evil ideology, about Hitler's, for instance, ideology, we see some logic and some full picture of the world. And it is really difficult to imagine Hitler saying in one sentence that Jews are our brothers, and then that Jews are animals, terrible creatures, and something like that. He was quite accurate, and this ideology was based on some horrible and evil but logic. The idea of Putin's regime is the deliberate lack of logic, and the manipulating of the society is based on this idea that you might infiltrate people with some ideas, but they don't have to correspond with each other. They don't have to be logical. They don't have to, you don't need any like strong and clear relationships and connections. It is bad because the situation changes, and you have just, but the idea that the society is so exhausted with this first of all fear, and then with this this impossibility to picture something logical in your head, then that they will buy almost everything. And if you you just have to prepare the platform, and you just need these people who are used that logic and morality, it's not so important, and some other things are important. And I think that this type of dictatorship, maybe it's not unique, but it is definitely, usually we see cases when there is logic and the strong picture of the world, and it might be evil and horrible, but we can see the consistency. And this deliberate lack of consistency, it is something about him and about his minnows, sycophants.
Is this why, two elements that I think constantly confuse people about internal and to an extent external Russian propaganda, there is that lack of consistency. It's many messages on many different levels. It's designed to appeal to left and right and stoke division. But there's two features that come out very strongly. One is victimhood, especially in the internal propaganda. Victimhood and conspiratorial thinking. These two things come out very strongly.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really difficult to me to talk about this or the whole conspirological line, because I see that the ideology is based on this, especially because conspiracy is something quite opposed to logic and evidence and proofs and facts and something like that. And it is interesting because, well, Professor Dugin, one of the ideologists of Putin's regime, he has a book, a special like research called Conspirology. And it is really important, but at the same time, and I see, I'm interrupting myself because I have a perfect example, and I see how it works, and I see that the society gets really infiltrated by these ideas. And I saw this example when right after the first drought, right after the first mobilization in September 2002, all of a sudden, there was this council of women, mothers and wives, who were actually protesting. It was very difficult to describe what were they protesting against, because they were not protesting against war and they were not protesting against mobilization, but they were protesting against the mobilization of their sons and their husbands. But actually, it was a women's movement. It was a movement, and they were very critical and they were loud, and I was observing it with some interest. And they had this huge press conference, and it was horrifying because mostly they were addressing to Putin. It's a very common genre. Dear Mr. Putin, your army is corrupt, your minnows are corrupt, you just don't know what's happening there, just please pay attention. It's very typical, the same way it was with Stalin and so on. They were talking about horrible violations of human rights in the army, and it is pretty obvious. But then they started talking about the Tavistock institution of fear that rules all the world society, and how they manipulate us with techniques of special fear and so on. And I just recognized Dugin's speeches and Dugin's texts in the words of a woman from Saratov or any other city. And this woman was absolutely destroyed, and her son or her husband was sent to Ukraine and so on. And in this moment, she was quoting Dugin without pronouncing his name, because maybe she even doesn't know his name, but these ideas somehow got to her. And I realized that, well, again, I realized, like many times before, I realized, yes, they won. Because if it works this way, and when your close relative is brought to war, and you don't know why do we need this war, and what is happening, and why we invaded they invaded the neighbor country. And you just have this explanation about some institute, I'm sorry, I think it's in London, that manipulates people. And here we go, they won. It is exact example of what I was trying to explain, to understand.
And it builds on very old tropes, doesn't it? I mean, the Nazis had a similar one, which is the sort of world Zionism, and there are secret powers controlling everything. And what sort of shocked me is how transferable that is. I mean, I have a good friend who has been on protests, ended up in the back of one of the vans. Fortunately, it was let out. Went to the CISO and stuff. And yet, even someone who's opposed to the regime will still come out with the idea that there's still a global war party, and somehow Russia was provoked into doing this. And somehow there are circles within circles, and there are inner depths and meanings, because the simple explanation is so horrific. The most basic explanation is so terrible that it would put responsibilities on people to do something. So there's always this way of trying to say, but it's not nearly as simple as you think it is. Неоднозначно, I think, is the phrase.
And I think that not only is it horrifying, but it also, this recognition of the situation and understanding and acknowledging it, I think it might lead to, it's not only horrifying, it just demolishes your whole world, your life. And this is unacceptable. You can just, you can do that, because it's your whole life and all your ideas and all your decisions and so on. And you just can't destroy yourself by admitting it. So you have this like defense and some ideas and this fog. There is always fog, like,
Yeah, we can't know the truth. Well, let's turn to the documentary series, because you chart how Putin deconstructed the media environment, a little bit like the analogy, boiling the frog, piece by piece, network by network. But he seemed to start with satire, and I think he went after NTV. One of the programs there, Kukli, I remember that very well, with Shenderovich, which ripped government officials apart, including Putin. Anyone who's watching this who's in the UK will remember the program Spitting Image. It was very much based on that principle. Why do you think Putin started with satire, and then how did he proceed to dismantle the rest of the mainstream media?
I think that in 2001, and it is really interesting, I just might interrupt myself again. It's really interesting because I started my series with the year 2000, and I was thinking, okay, there are some dictators' moves since 2000, and so what is it? So he had this whole evil plan from the very beginning, and in 2000 and 2001, he was already thinking about the annexation of Crimea and invading Ukraine and so on. Of course not. I don't think he had already his all figured out. I don't think there was a plan, but I think that this modus of thinking that if you have this power, first thing you do, you have to just, it's just an insurance, just to be calm for the rest of your being a power. You just do these things. You just cancel the elections of governors. You just provide this judicial reform, which is horrible actually, and nobody noticed it, and so on. And yes, there was this story with NTV in 2001, and I think that of course, I think that he was like really pissed about Kukli and I don't know, it's not the dolls, how to try puppets, it's puppets, I think.
Puppets, yes.
Puppets, I think. And there was a special episode dedicated to him where he was like Goffman's character, Kleine Zaches, and it was disgusting and very, very symptomatic and disgusting. And of course, there are some like very personal emotions, but at the same time, he's like really clever, and he understood one thing. Of course, besides of Kleine Zaches and puppets, NTV was covering the second war in Chechnya. And it was covering it not from a very complimentary for Putin's way. And he had a lot of problems with NTV. But destroying NTV, by destroying NTV, he actually, it was a very elegant solution for a very big problem. He just demolished the whole television idea. Because I can't say that all the independent media were demolished in early 2000s. No, it is not like that. And thank God we had a lot of independent media outlets, but that were websites, newspapers, then later at some point podcasts and so on. But he realized, well, he was not familiar with the idea of internet, and he's not familiar with it now, of course, but he knew that television is the most viral and the most influent thing. And he just had to arrange it this way. The media landscape was arranged this way that you can have all your independent media outlets somewhere, but the television is mine. And you can't even think about something not loyal appearing on, well, there were something, and of course, and NTV didn't become a propaganda media outlet immediately after April 2001. Of course not. But the whole landscape was formed exactly at that moment. It was just the final solution. I have my television. He underestimated the whole idea of internet, of course, and in 2001, I don't know, maybe I can explain that, but this media landscape and this idea that the most influent channel, the most direct way to the people's hearts and minds, that one should be mine. And he succeeded. He succeeded, and there was one small exception in 2010, and I'm sorry that I'm talking about TV Rain, but it was symptomatic because it was one small exception. It was actually like one minor Putin's mistake, which he corrected immediately in 4 years easily. But this was a small episode when he was wrong. He made a mistake.
And it became more powerful, more influential than he could have imagined, I think.
Yeah, I think that this episode, this moment when in 2010 TV Rain is born, and the president Medvedev was the president back then, he visited newborn TV channel and supported it. And of course, there was a huge increase of the audience after his visit. But I think Medvedev and Putin both thought that it was something about lifestyle and innovations and technologies and so on. And they just didn't realize how journalists work. And if there are technologies and it is the main topic of the day, they'll cover the technologies. But if there are protests and the protests are the main topic of the day and the main agenda, they will cover the protests or Maidan. And so they had to correct their mistakes.
And the takeover didn't happen all at once, but there have been points of acceleration of autocracy where If you're conspiratorial, you could say, well, maybe the government had some hand in it. But Putin's regime has also been very good at exploiting events as they happen, even where they haven't potentially had a hand in them. And various tragedies such as Nordost, Beslan, it's been able to leverage these tragedies to ratchet up its control and messaging over society, and to start building this concept of a terrifying world out there, a hostile world, which, of course, the autocratic regime is protecting people from.
Yeah, and he was using these tragedies in different ways, and of course, one of his very important ideas that is very important for him is to raise xenophobia and this constant feeling of enemies around us and everywhere. At the same time, and it was like pretty common, and this is actually very typical for, I think, any dictator. It is ground rule. Enemies are everywhere, and I'm the only lifesaver. As simple as that. But at the same time, it was interesting how he was rotating these enemies and how this xenophobia was transformed, and it actually didn't matter. And I remember these conversations on federal television about people from Chechnya and people from Dagestan and Armenia and Azerbaijan and something, I don't know. But and at that moment, these so-called experts were talking about how these people are violating our rights, and our rights that were our rights, Russian rights and Ukrainian rights. They hurt us, Russians and Ukrainians. And then they had to make this pivot. And there were a very short period of huge xenophobia against Georgian people, and then something else, and then Ukrainians. And so the rotating of enemies was important for him, and also the solution of small, no, not small, I can call it small, of some like technical problems that were bothering him. For instance, the potential of protests in regions. And so he used the tragedy in Beslan. And again, there is no logic at all, but he used the tragedy in Beslan, and it was a horrible terror attack. He used it to just cancel the elections of the governors in the regions. And no one could see any connection between the governor's elections in Siberia and the terror attacks from Chechnya. And nobody could explain how that would help us and what's the logic here, but nobody even asked the question. And I saw this moment when he presents this idea that we don't need any elections of the governors anymore, right after Beslan, 2 weeks after Beslan. And it is like some mantra, because he just uses the word unity for 14 times in a very short very short time period, and he doesn't explain anything. But well, I have to admit, not only his Minos bought it and his officials bought it, but we all bought it, and I don't remember any protests against this whole story with regions and governors. Nobody protested, or it was so small and insignificant that it doesn't count.
Another moment, I think, which at the time was not clearly understood, again, because of a lot of, popular conspiracy and maybe some elements of truth as well. And that was the incredible moment that Mikhail Borisovich Khodorkovsky confronted Putin at that sort of infamous gathering and challenged Putin about corruption and other issues. I think at the time, I mean, firstly, because Khodorkovsky is Jewish, secondly, because he's an oligarch and fabulously rich. I'm not sure there was a huge amount of sympathy most people had on his side, but this was used as a grand method to stifle political activity. But I think at the time it was difficult to discern that what you're seeing is the emergence of politics and grand politics and the snuffing out. At the time, it just seems to be a conflict between two big personalities with a huge amount of power.
Yeah, it was always easier to present something like a personal conflict, or like the whole scenario with the demolishing of NTV was presented as a business conflict, as just business, nothing personal. And it was so much easier to think about that, about it this way. I might try to explain that, but okay, then again, we are talking about such difficult, and we are talking about psychology and psychology of the society, and I have no proofs, but I can only share my observations and my feelings. Actually, it was so much easier to not to climb on the barricades. Actually, it was so much easier because and again, here I am with my focus on historical memory and so on. But there was such a horrible period of Soviet time, with repressions, horrible repressions earlier, and with this swamp, with this fog and double thinking in late 70s and 80s, and then 10 years of freedom, of total freedom, an incredible experiment for Russian society, post-Soviet society. And the idea that you might need to climb on the barricades again, protest again, be terrified again, be repressed again, that you might think about ideology, that you might honestly speak about liberty and human rights and so on. It was like, okay, it is so obvious, and we already have it. And the Soviet Union collapsed, and thank God, and we buried it. And it can't be returned, and we can't deal with it anymore. And we have such a strong allergies to the idea of ideology, because we had the Soviet ideology, and we had these rules, and and we had these rules and these part meetings and so on, and just like, leave us alone, just please, no ideology anymore. And all the people who just kept the dissident tradition inside them, and who were protesting in the late 70s and 80s, and who actually started to talk about how is not everything is going in the right way, and that, okay, it is democracy, but at some point it starts not looking like a democracy, and something is definitely off. And maybe the war in Chechnya, for instance, somehow contradicts the idea of democracy, because it is hardly connected things, the war and the democracy. And these people, these several people who kept this dissident tradition inside them, they were considered like, it's just panic. It's just they are just used to this modus operandi. They are just used to barricades and shouting out loud. And KGB we have no KGB, and FSB is not so dangerous, and it is some other institution. No, it's not another institution, it's the same institution. And it was so much easier to consider the fight between Yukos and Putin like a personal conflict between two strong personalities. So that I think that this matter, that was the main reason why nobody protested, because it was really difficult to to go back to this scheme where there are they and there are us, and they keep doing something to us. And there was this feeling of agency, and a lot of people who became politicians and especially political technologists, and they realized them, they found themselves like creatures of the political creators of political reality. And this temptation was like huge. You wanted to feel yourself like an actor. You wanted this feeling of agency. And if you are on the barricades again, then you admit that here is again this situation when they are doing something with us. And we are just trying to protest, but they are the power. And the feeling that we are the power, it was a huge temptation. And I think that that caused us a lot of problems.
And another one, of course, is the role of the diaspora as well, because it's now clear things are more black and white. The hybrid autocracy has kind of fallen away, and the regime has either moved to be more dictatorial, or it's just not hiding the fact like it used to. Now you have a huge Russian diaspora, some of whom, many of whom will sort of blend and merge into their new countries, and will simply cease to will simply try to exist, and have an economic existence, not a political existence. But there are, of course, some people, and interestingly, we've seen quite a few Russians in the crowds in Georgia protesting on the barricades. That is extremely heartening, I think, to see how many people are getting involved in that. Of course, it must be terrifying to see the thing that they've escaped from reaching down, and its hand reaching down into there. But do you think the regime of Putin is going to see the diaspora more and more as something to be manipulated and used, or something to be feared and repressed?
I honestly don't know. I have this feeling that they just don't care, that the authorities just don't care, and that they have this feeling that if you left, okay, farewell. Like, we don't care about you anymore. You can't come back. And if you come back, there will be circumstances. Like it happened, for instance, I'm sure you heard the case of Zhenya Berkovich, the director, the theater director, and her screenwriter Svetlana Petrichuk. Zhenya was in Moscow, and she was arrested and accused of being a terrorist or extremist, something like that. But Svetlana, she already left Russia, and she was visiting for a very short time, and she was detained and arrested, and she's in jail right now. So they have this focus on people coming back, definitely. But I don't think that they consider the diaspora as something that threatens them. And I don't think that I don't know if they make some special efforts to infiltrate propaganda, especially for these people. I don't know. I know that the propaganda machine is huge and incredibly effective, and it's working. But I think that they are thinking that these are like these 2%. It was like, I'm quoting Vladimir Solovyov, one of the most famous Russian propaganda guys, and he had he had this. He said at some point that these people in the opposition, it is 2%, and then he explained 2% of what, of some excrements. I'm sorry, his words, not mine. And I think that it is pretty much their view on people in resistance. And if they are inside Russia, they are dealing with them and they are arresting them and prosecuting them. But I don't think that people outside Russia is like some kind of topic for them. I don't know, I might be wrong, and maybe they have this huge special program prepared already, but I don't think that that they're really bothered about that.
And lastly, you've written very eloquently about the fact that there are very few plaques or memorials to victims of not just the Stalinist repressions and terror, but all the crimes committed during the Soviet Union. And we know now that, for instance, Ukrainian writers and poets were being, killed right up until the 1980s. And throughout that period of Zastoy, when the political population supposedly, shrank significantly, there was still an awful lot of, let's say, sort of criminality taking place against intelligentsia and so on. The fact that there is almost total impunity, that no one has been punished for the crimes of the Stalin and Soviet years, what hope do you have that there will be some kind of impunity for the crimes that are being committed now?
Yeah, there are two questions that usually make me feel like I'm so close to commit suicide. The question about hope and the question about what Russians think. And I'm just, at this point, I think that I personally don't have any hope, but I have this very, very simple idea, and especially after Alexei Navalny's murder, this idea increased and made me more sure. I don't know. It was as simple as that. Alexei asked us to keep working. He actually asked us not to lose hope as well. And I'm not sure if I'm capable of that, but I'm definitely capable of working for now. And this is as simple as that. I work without any hope, and we'll see. I can, of course, I have some, when I'm thinking not so much personally, but trying to think as a historian, I think that, well, this regime will end at some point, definitely. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. I don't think that Putin is going to die anytime soon. He seems pretty healthy. But it will end at some point. And whatever is on this place that used to be called Russia, whatever happens with people, whatever happens with the world, actually, because the whole world will change definitely after that. We or they, I don't know, depends on the time, will need to deal with these consequences. We will have to deal with history. We will have to deal with with this construction of Putin's regime and how it was built and how did it work. I don't know. There are two types of thinking because there might be a way to think about it, like about the future in Russia or something there, or there might be another way of thinking about other countries and about other dictatorship and about like our lessons and our pain and our experience that might be useful for other countries. I don't know. And I think that as a historian, I think that okay, I have this request from Alexei Navalny, and I have these just ground rules from Hannah Arendt, who made it pretty clear that we have to have this historical record, and we have to collect the evidence. And in my dreams, I'm like when I grow up, maybe I'm like some digitally driven Hannah Arendt. And so having these personalities, this request and these rules from quite different sides, I just keep doing my work. And I was saying that I don't think anything will happen, anything will change anytime soon, but there are always black swans, and Russia is like well, quite a friendly territory for black swans. We can't hope for them. It doesn't work this way, but we know that Russia is somehow user-friendly for black swans.
Yes, absolutely. And anything can happen. I think Peter Pomerantsev's title, nothing is true and everything is possible.
Yeah.
That absolutely fits. Anna, it's been a huge pleasure speaking to you on some very challenging issues. I'm extremely grateful for you. Painful it is to share some of those ideas with us. Thank you so much for being on Silicon Curtain.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. It was a pleasure, and thank you for having me.
Right, let's